Alright, so this video is covering stops like plain stops, aspirated stops, and spirants. Stops are sounds that are produced with a complete closure or contact at the oral cavity of the vocal tract with no nasal leakage. And then you can get an aspirated release for stops, which consists of glottal noise. There is a narrowing in the glottis that produces this friction, and that's what we signal with this super index H. And then these guys here are the spirants, which are funny sounds which exist in some languages, like for example in Spanish. I will explain now how they're pronounced. Okay, so basically the kind of contrasts that we get here have to do with glottal action. So what's going on with the vocal folds? Are they separate? Are they together? You know that when the glottis is open, there's no vibration of the vocal folds, so you get a voiceless sound. And on the contrary, if the vocal folds are together, as long as they're not like really tight, they impede initially the pass of the air, but finally the air goes through and makes the folds vibrate. So in that case you get a voiced sound. By convention, in the IPA, we always write voiceless sounds on the left and the equivalent voiced sounds on the right for the same column corresponding to a specific place of articulation. In the case of aspirated sounds, a lot has to do with temporal coordination between what's going on in the glottis and at the supralaryngeal structures. So basically what happens is, if the starting point is a wider glottal configuration, by the time the oral closure is released, the vocal folds are coming together but are not touching each other yet. So there is this intermediate moment when let's say the mouth is already open, but then you get this air coming through the glottis that produces that hiss. Alright, so that's what produces the aspiration here. Many languages have automatic alternations between the plain and aspirated stops, and that's the case in English, for example. So in English, you get aspirated variants at the beginning of a prosodic foot. So that means at the beginning of any word, or in the middle of a word if it is a stressed syllable. So I have written some examples here to illustrate this. So in the P series, for example, you get polite with the aspiration because this P is at the beginning of the word. You get apologize, also aspirated, because even if it's in the middle of the word, it is in the stressed syllable. But then you get aperture with no aspiration at all, because that's the elsewhere condition, right? It's not the beginning of a foot. And the same happens for T, like in together or attire, but then you get etiquette without aspiration. And then you get kangaroo occurrence, but economic, right? So just pay attention to this, because since these alternations are automatic in English, many times English speakers don't realize the difference between the aspirated and non-aspirated stops when they are in the expected context, or in this case, rather than context, those would be prosodic positions. But then if you change the rule, no, so you pronounce the aspirated stop when you're supposed to pronounce the plain stop, and vice versa, then you really gain awareness of what the difference is about, right? So imagine I would say polite, but aperture, right? So that would sound weird, but that's probably one of the best ways to gain awareness of this difference, right? Okay. And then the other contrast that you want to pay attention to is between the voiced stop and the spirants. So in the stop there is a complete contact between the organs. In the spirants there is not. Okay, so even if you think that to pronounce this V you have to like really close your lips, that's not the case. So there is a small leakage of air continuously through the lips in this case. So for example, to feel the sensation of this kind of sound, you can do like this with your finger in your mouth, like, yeah. So I'm gonna sit like laterally here. There should be at least through the laterals, like the mouth corners, a small leakage of air. So when I do like this, you see that there's still some gap here. So the same when I just pronounce this V naturally, I would say ava, 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 ava. So you have to allow the air to keep flowing out of your mouth during the entire duration of that sound, right? So, and I'm going to go through all the different places of articulation. Pa, apa, apa, up, versus pa, apa, apa, up. Okay? And then pa, apa, apa, up, ba, aba, aba, ab. To check this difference, you may want to touch your throat, like to feel the larynx vibration. But be careful, because sometimes if you do like ba, ba, you would think, okay, so there is a vibration in both. Yes, that's true, because there is the vowel. So the vowel is always voiced in this case. So it is better to contrast a, ba, like very slowly, versus abba, right? Abba, abba. And then I will do the contrast between these two, the voiced stop and the spirant. So ba, abba, abba, ab. You see that I'm having like a complete closure here. This would be like the normal thing in English. And va, ava, ava, ab. Also be careful not to confuse this with V, right? Because this sound is bilabial. It's not labial dental, right? So, yeah, that's it. Okay, now, moving forward, we come to these sounds, which are the dentals. Pay attention to the fact that, well, IPA was invented mostly by English-speaking people. So most of the times, the symbols that look simpler correspond to the sounds that exist in English. And then whenever there is a slight difference to signal what's going on in different languages, you will add the diacritics. So these here are different from T or D in English, because in English they are alveolar, but these are dental, right? So we mark this with this, we call it a bridge. It's actually like a square bracket looking down. To pronounce these, you have to touch the inner part of your upper teeth with your tongue tip, right? Ta, ata, ata, at. Or da, ada, ada, ad. Okay? And now I will make the contrast between the plain and the aspirated. Ta, ata, ata, at. Or ta, ata, ata, at. Okay? And this sound is actually not dental proper, it is interdental. Okay, so that would be la, ada, ada, ad. Okay, there is a slight part. Sometimes I will just exaggerate this to make the example, right? But you don't have to like do da, okay? But just a slight part of your tongue tip should be outside. La, ada, ada, ad. I will make the dental again. Ta, ata, ata, at. Another alveolar. Da, ata, ata, at. Da, ada, ada, ad. Da, ada, ada, ad. Okay, there is a slight difference. You have to pay a lot of attention here. Okay. So going on with the alveolars, you can also get the aspirated contrast. Ta, ata, ata, at, or ta, ata, ata, at. Okay? And then you can also get the retroflexes. Ta, ata, ata, at. Da, ada, ada, ad. Or ta, ata, ata, at. Okay. Now, these are the palatals. For this sound, you have to think it is like a K, which is followed by an I, but then it's really not followed by an I, but any vowel, right? So by coarticulation, you will have a fronted K, but then you do ka, a ka, a ka, a. And the same for the voiced. So ka, a ya, a ya, a. And then this sound, you have to be careful not to confuse it with English Y. It's very similar, it's only a little bit more closed. Okay, so English Y is actually a glide, but this is aspirant, so it's actually an obstruent, right? So obstruents comprise stops, fricatives, and aspirants. For example, in Spanish, you would pronounce this mayor, mayor, mayor. There is not a friction either, so it's not major. I mean, that pronunciation is also possible in some varieties of Spanish, but like in standard peninsular Spanish, for example, you would say mayor, mayor, but not mayor. Many students of Spanish say mayor. The whole series here would be ya, aya, aya, ay. Okay? Different from ya, aya, aya, ay. See the difference? Okay. Now, velar. Ka, aka, aka, ak. Ka, aka, aka, ak. Again, ka, aka, aka, ak. Ga, aga, aga, ag. And la, aga, aga, ag. See, so this is a complete closure. Ga, aga, aga, ag. La, aga, aga, ag. This is much softer. Okay, there is a continuous leakage of air. And then we will compare the velar and the uvular. So, ka, aka, aka, ak. Ka, aka, aka, ak. Okay, and then you have the voiced version. Okay, la, aga, aga, ag. And then you have the aspirated version. Ka, aka, aka, ak. And then finally we get the glottal stop, which is a very common sound in English. So, for example, you will get it when you say navigate. For example, when you say oh, so that's the sound, right? So you should be able to distinguish, for example, like a start without glottal stop, like versus okay, there is this stop at the beginning.